Hoping everyone can hear us okay. We've done a few run-throughs of this and it seems to be working. But hello, welcome to everyone that's joining us on our webinar on how to win in e-commerce SEO in 2025 and beyond. I'm Lewis Koch. I'm SEO manager here at Distinctly, and this is my colleague.
Cameron Sykes. I'm a senior SEO manager at Distinctly, also specialising in e-commerce, just same as Lewis.
And yeah, I've got first and foremost, thanks for submitting any questions that you did. We'll answer them at the end. And yeah, feel free to ask any in the chat and during the slides. Any reference articles or studies we can send through after the slides, absolutely no worries whatsoever. So there's lots to cover. We've done this before, like I said, and it hits about 30 minutes on the dot. So excuse us for trying to rush through this, and a lot to cover. And we may do a follow-up webinar on AI alone. There's so much to cover there. So yeah, without further ado, Cam?
Cool. So as Lewis said, we may run 5 or 10 minutes over, not a problem if you've got hard to finish. We will be sharing the recording afterwards. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at how Google's e-commerce landscape has changed over recent years, how you as brands need to stay on top of this and what you can do to win in Google in 2025 and beyond, and how to future-proof your e-commerce strategy now that we are very much living in the world of AI search. Any questions we will be covering at the end that we haven't covered in the deck already, and as Lewis said, please do put them in the Q&A section and we will pick them up at the end. So let's start by looking at how Google's e-commerce landscape has changed. So to do this, we really have to study how the search results have evolved over the recent years. As a good example, let's look at the search results going way back to January 22 for the keyword men's razors. So it looks like simpler times. We can see 10 blue links, we can see images, site links, and people also ask for a box, but not much else apart from that. If we jump forward to today, we can see a very different story. So it isn't just about 10 blue links anymore. We can see new schema types that have been introduced around pricing, returns policies, store ratings, dedicated image carousels, dedicated product listings. We've got product sites and people also buy from sections. So gone are the days of just relying on driving clicks and revenue from blue links. We as SEOs and yourself as brands really have to be focusing on how to optimize for these new spaces as well. To give a bit more of an example as to how that looks, we looked at 1,000 e-commerce keywords, and on average on Google's page 1 results, there's 47 links for users to choose from. So this is huge. This is probably at least double what it was back in early 2022. And brands that we see struggle are brands that are still approaching e-commerce SEO as they used to a few years ago and not taking into account all of these changes that we've seen. So take an even bigger step back and let's look at 90,000 e-commerce keywords. We wanted to see how popular the different SERP features are. So a SERP feature is something like a popular products grid that appears on the search results pages. We expect to see images high, we expect to see people also ask, because these aren't new. But these sections highlighted, these are new, and these are pretty specific to e-commerce search results. So of those 90,000 keywords, 78% trigger a popular product grid on page 1, 31% trigger a compare sites feature, and 21% trigger an explore brands. This is what they look like in a bit more detail. So people also buy from or explore brands is a category links, and this is essentially Google recommending brands for the search that you put into Google. Product sites or compare sites, these are affiliate links. So you can't rank in these unless you're an affiliate website, but there's usually a carousel of 4 to 6 of these. And popular products, which I'm sure a lot of you want to know more about today. Reviews, returns, pricing information, all straight in the search results. So all of these are taking clicks away from blue link rankings and taking clicks away from pages that you could have relied on in previous years to drive high clicks and high revenue. Let's look at an example. Double air fryer, popular keywords, popular products, product sites, people also ask, organic rankings, more popular product grids, people also buy from, people also search for. There's over 60 links for a user to choose from on here. And even if we look at position 1, it's wedged between a popular product, a people also are section, and a product sites and a popular product grid. So we can see pretty clearly that the organic ranks, those blue link URLs, are going to get fewer clicks than they used to because the choice is just so much higher. So how do we grow as e-commerce brands? To do that, we have to understand how competitive the search results are for the keywords that we want to rank for. It isn't just a matter of looking at what's got high search volume or how difficult we think a keyword is. We have to understand what search features are present, what search features can we be visible in, how visible are we, and how do we think that's going to impact the amount of clicks. Rank tracking is still important, but for e-commerce brands, it's just a small part of the bigger picture. And if you rely just on rank tracking alone, you're going to miss a lot of information that can help you drive growth in e-commerce SEO. So with that in mind, how can you, as e-commerce brands, win in Google in 2025 and beyond? First and foremost, you have to optimize for product visibility. It's an absolute must. Like we said, 80% of transactional keywords are triggering a popular products grid, which can be anywhere from 8 to 24 product listings, all with reviews, all with pricing and returns and delivery information straight in the search results. They are getting clicks. We are seeing clicks to blue link URLs go down. We have to be focusing here. Now, this is a huge topic that we could probably do a webinar just for this. There's just so much to talk about. But if you're a brand that's looking to get into this space or a brand that's struggling, these are the 4 things that you absolutely have to do. These are your non-negotiables. So you need to make sure you've got an enriched product feed. And so this goes through Merchant Center. It has to be fully optimized. That includes categories, GTIN numbers where possible, include information on variants, have descriptive titles. Optimize your product images. So we distinctly recommend 5 to 8 images per product. We recommend high quality images, okay, because they're going to pull directly into the search results and they're what's going to help with the click-through rate. Shipping and returns policies. A lot of e-commerce brands now rely on delivery information as a USP. It could be fast delivery, it could be free delivery. Make sure that is getting shouted about directly in the search. And high store ratings. It's more important now than ever that brands really focus on gathering a lot of reviews, especially positive reviews, because these are going to get shown directly in the search results. Taking these images on the left as an example, if you click through to these, it isn't just going to direct them to your store, it's going to show them options. So you'll see, for example, Sports Direct and more, Argos and more. So you're not just competing for the listing, you're competing to get the click through to the website when the user even selects the product. So you need to make sure you're putting all of that great information front and center. In terms of measuring this, so this is absolutely key. If you're going to spend time, potentially budget in growing your product visibility, you need to understand how to actually measure success in this space. 2 avenues you have to be looking at. One is what we call query visibility. So how many keywords that trigger a popular product grid do you appear for? The other side of this is how many individual product listings you have. So we know that a popular product grid can have anywhere from 8 to 24 individual products, and a brand can have more than 1 product listed per keyword. Let's use these 2 charts as an example. On the left-hand side, we're looking at how many keywords each brand is visible in a popular products grid for. Argos leading the pack, 83%. That sounds great, and it is great. When we look at how many individual product listings each brand has, Amazon have got over double. So they've actually got over double the amount of products there. Their click-through rate will be higher, their clicks will be higher, and they'll be making more revenue from them. So you need to be monitoring both of these at the same time. If possible, and what we've done at Distinctly is create internal tools to do this at scale. It's almost a share of voice metric here that you're looking for, but this will just mean that you're not just growing from many keywords, but you can understand, are you growing or declining, and how many products are actually being listed. Number 2 is about building your site architecture. So a lot of brands will build out their site architecture around what they think their core product range is, and they neglect the user intent. You have to hit both of these. So let's look at an example of this to see how it looks in action. This is the women's coats and jackets category page on Next. So we can see here they've targeted the main intent, women who want coats and jackets, but they've got 3,500 products in here. So they understand that users don't want to have to manually filter or scroll through that many products. So then they create these subpages. And these subpages target sub-intents. So they target raincoats or trench coats or denim coats. They target small, medium, large, red, blue, black, use cases like activewear. That's great. A lot of e-commerce brands will do that already. Obviously, the key to that is understanding what it is about your product range that users want to drill down further into. But where Next do this really well is they understand the search demand behind it. So let's take women's raincoats as an example. They understand that not only do people who land on the main coats and jackets page want to drill down further into raincoats, but actually people are searching raincoats directly into Google. They create an indexable page. That page now ranks #1. Now, this sounds great, and for Next, this is great. There is a massive risk here that if you don't do this based on how much actual search volume is going into Google, you're going to create hundreds or thousands or potentially millions of pages for some brands that aren't adding value. Okay, you're going to create lots of indexable pages, and if you scale out the number of indexable pages on your website, you will ultimately be penalized essentially for that. I mean, Google will downweight your website if you just flood the index with low value pages. So the question is, do you or do you not make an indexable page? If there's search volume, you do, but what if you can see that users want to target, users who land on the women's coats page often look at small blue raincoats, but nobody's searching that into Google. Well, you've got another option. You don't need static URLs to target these intents. Let's look at Marks and Spencer's school shoes page as an example. They've got a link at the top. School shoes under £35. Now, that's not an indexable page. This is a filter page that they've added a link to. So they know that when users land on the school shoes page, they want to see products under £35. But they also know that nobody's searching that into Google, or not enough people to justify creating a page. So instead, they use a filter at the top, perfect for user experience. I'd imagine this is great for conversion rate. And it gives them an option to almost give users a shortcut to convert without scaling out their landing pages with low value indexable pages. If you want to do this as a brand, there's a couple of ways you can do this. We recommend looking at your site search data if we're tracking this. So when users land on the school shoes page of Marks and Spencer's, are they going into the site search and looking for shoes under £35? Look at your filters. So e-commerce brands will have filters, you'll have a faceted navigation. Look at how they're being engaged with, create events to understand, are there certain price points that are more interesting on landing pages? Are there colors? Are there sizes? And if possible, have these sort of popular searches or popular links front and center at the top of the page. As a little tip, whenever you're looking at creating new landing pages, which for e-commerce does happen quite often, always group keywords into clusters. Don't just create landing pages at scale without qualifying it. Like we said, this is a snapshot of a report from a tool we use called Keyword Insights. What we're looking at here is essentially how similar the search results are for women's coats and women's jackets. So women's jackets have 7 of the same URLs ranking as women's coats does. Google's telling us that you don't need 2 pages to target that. You need to target that on 1 page. Hence why Next have a page targeting women's coats and jackets. If you don't tick this box and understand how unique or overlapping search results are, you do risk cannibalization. And when you do that at scale for e-commerce brands, this can be very, very bad, especially on performance. So how can you do this? It sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like it might be quite difficult to do. We've built out a bit of criteria here that you can follow before creating any new landing pages. Okay, so use this to qualify it against search volume, search results, and search intent. If a keyword or a topic has sufficient search volume, and that could be unique to your brand, whatever you want to target, unique search results, and high purchase intent, create an indexable page. Make sure you link it from other pages, make sure it's in your hierarchy. If there's good search volume, but there's overlapping intent, like we saw with women's coats and jackets, but there's high purchase intent, optimize the page that you already have live, or consolidate those keywords into 1 page. Or if there isn't enough search volume directly into Google, but it's got a high purchase intent and users are interested in it, go down the route that we saw with Marks and Spencer's, optimize the on-site journey, and try and create those shortcuts to conversions that your users will absolutely use. Next, click-through rate optimization, CTR optimization is probably one of the most underrated and maybe underused tactics that any e-commerce SEO brand can do. So here's a quick example as to why, and I think you'll see quite clearly. This is the search result for the keyword laptops. Hugely popular, high search volume keyword, very competitive. We can see Currys, AO.com, Laptop Station, all leading into price in their titles. Best deals, best laptop deals, cheap laptop deals. They're using different types of schema to either pull products directly into the search result, pull the store rating, minimum, maximum pricing and delivery. But then we look at Argos in position 2. This is a missed opportunity. So your image in the search results is absolutely key to how high your click-through rate will be. Even though Argos ranked position 2, I would argue their click-through rate is either the same or lower than those in position 3 and 4 below them, because they haven't maximized that. As an example, as a bit of a use case for this, we did this for one of our clients, lent into what the audience wanted, which is around low pricing and good deals. And by adding this into the page titles like we see here, we increased click-through rate by 25%. This is a pretty low effort, high reward task, but the key thing here is you have to test. Don't just assume that you know what people want. Test, add something to your page titles, look at the uplift in conversion rate, and then test again, and then roll it out across all of your pages. And make sure you're using available schema types. They do show in the search results for e-commerce brands more than any other type of industry. And if you don't use it at this point, like Argos, you're sort of falling behind. Next is about data. So e-commerce brands, even mid-sized e-commerce brands, gather a huge amount of data, whether it's search data, page level data around conversions and conversion rate. You have to use this and understand how that feeds into your SEO strategy. So we talked a little about how competitive SERPs are. We can't rely on high rankings to drive high clicks anymore, and we're seeing click-through rates drop. So how do you qualify keywords to target? How do you find opportunities? And importantly for us and for everybody live and everybody watching the recording, how do you forecast SEO growth if you're saying that rank tracking is not going to drive high clicks? So we need to look at other metrics, and one that is unbelievably underrated, would be used heavily here at the Simply, is pixel depth. Pixel depth is a metric that looks at how far down the page from the top of the screen is each element on the search result, and it's measured in pixels. In this image here on the left, we can see that the first organic result in green, 667 pixels down from the top. So that sounds great. Why is it important? Let's look at it as a live example. Looked at 1,000 keywords, and if we look at the top row of this table, we can see that the smallest pixel depth for any keyword in position 1 of those 1,000 is 163 pixels, okay? The largest pixel depth, which means where position 1 was on the search result for one of those keywords, was over 16 times that. So what this means is that let's assume both of these keywords have the same search volume. If you're in position 1 for the smallest pixel depth, you're right at the top of the page, just underneath the ads, you're going to get a good click-through rate. If you're in position 1 for the largest pixel depth at 2,754, your click-through rate is going to be poor because you're going to have popular product grids, maybe product sites and ads ranking above you. So when you're looking at how to understand where the opportunities are as an e-commerce brand, look at search volume, look at search intent, but also overlay pixel depth and understand what that impact is going to have on your click-through rate, and ideally start focusing your resource, your budget and your time on those keywords that have tick the boxes, good search volume, good purchase intent, and are going to drive a good click-through rate. Also importantly, do track this over time. We know that today, smallest pixel depth might be 163. Tomorrow, popular products grid might appear above that. That will impact your click-through rate. That will impact your traffic and your forecasting and your revenue. But it isn't just about pixel depth. Other metrics that we recommend you track. So how prominent are certain features across the keyword that you're trying to target? Is search demand growing or declining? You can use Google's keyword planner to see up to 4 years of data here, which we highly recommend you do. Seasonality. If, for example, you have a landing page on long distance running trainers or comfortable running trainers, does that peak a few months before the London Marathon? You need to understand that, and then you need to understand how that fits into your SEO strategy and when to start pushing certain pages and topics. And expected versus actual query click-through rate. So, like I said, don't rely on the same click-through rate from 2 years ago being true today. Start to understand what your actual click-through rate is. And as a general rule of thumb, we recommend do not trust generic click-through rate codes. You might read articles that say that position 1 should get you 20% or 25% click-through rate. But for e-commerce brands, that just is not the case. We recommend building your own. You might just be surprised at what you've seen. As an example of this, for an e-commerce brand that we work with in a very competitive space, we found that click-through rate when they ranked in position 1 averaged under 3%. So we need to understand as SEOs and as e-commerce brands what that looks like. What is your click-through rate curve? And it doesn't need to be treated as an exact science. You could say that this is anywhere from 2 to 6%, but it means that you can start to understand how many clicks can you expect to receive as a brand. And not just from your blue links, you can build click-through rate curves for different search features like popular products as well. Combine them all together, and then you can start to actually understand what's the opportunity in my market, how much revenue can I take as an e-commerce brand from the keywords I want to rank for. You can do this yourself if you want to. It can be a bit tricky, but to do this, you need to overlay your Search Console data on top of daily rank tracking, and we'd recommend giving it 3 to 4 weeks worth of data to get any sort of accuracy in. Next is around share of voice. So we've talked about traffic, clicks, revenue, rankings, and these are great, but these are metrics that are just isolated to your brand. What they don't tell you is what's happening in the market. And for e-commerce brands, this is so important. Share of voice it's a metric that combines search volume, ranking, click-through rate per keywords, and it essentially gives you what you can use as a market share metric. So you can understand, where is your brand positioned in the market? Which brands are growing? How is your growth compared to competitors or any other domain that you're competing with? That's really important. We at Distinctly, and I'm sure everybody live with us today, has to report to C-suite or directors or digital teams. This information is gold because it doesn't just tell you what your revenue is, it puts things into perspective. So you may have grown 10% year on year, your competitors may have grown 5%, the market may have shrunk. So it adds a bit more context to the reporting that you need to do. And it wouldn't be an SEO webinar without giving a nod to the basics. They've always worked, they will continue to work, and any strategy that doesn't include these will not succeed. Brands still have to focus on good targeting, good optimizations. They have to understand their audiences. You have to understand the different user intents, what your user's searching for, and do you have the content to satisfy those intents? Do you have good technical foundations? And really, above everything else, don't treat SEO in isolation. Make sure it connects to the work you're doing around your brand as well. This isn't going to change. Make sure this is the absolute pillar of your strategy. And lastly, and it may sound a bit counterintuitive, but let's think outside of just SEO. SEO is always going to be a high impact, high return channel, but it also works really well with other channels. So we recommend the brands that we work with to do this. Tap into your community, understand what your audience is saying. Let's use Gymshark as an example. Great brand, a lot of brand advocates out there, but even they aren't immune to bad feedback. The Gymshark subreddit, you can see that it's a little bit negative. They recently did a clothing line drop and it got some bad feedback. If we look at the image on the bottom right, we can see that Google is pulling through specific Reddit threads and Quora posts directly into search results. Brands have to be looking at forums like Reddit, review platforms like Trustpilot. Use those to get insights on what your audience is saying about you and your brand. What's the sentiment? What do they like and dislike? What are they saying about competitors? Do they dislike things about your competitors, maybe long delivery periods, that actually is a USP for you? Can you lean into that more? More importantly, just understand what they want. What are your users talking about your brand or your products, or even the category that you're trying to be visible in, and use that and lean into that in your content, in your digital PR, in your on-site messaging. Then make sure you're visible everywhere your customers are. So we know as SEOs, we optimize to be the last touch point before a purchase usually, especially for e-commerce. But the journey doesn't just take place in Google. For example, and this is a snapshot from a report from a tool that we use called SparkToro. This is looking at audiences rather than keywords. So using this tool, we can see that people who search for running trainers, that audience, are 15% more likely than the UK average to use Reddit, 14% more likely to use TikTok, 8% more likely to use X. If you're only focusing on being on Google, you're going to miss a huge part of this journey. You need to make sure you're creating content, you're talking to communities, you're monitoring discussions on all of these places, and then factoring that into your bigger digital strategy, in which SEO is also a part. So we've covered a lot here. If there's a few things that you can take away from this section about how to win in e-commerce SEO in 2025 and beyond, this should be this. You have to build efficient processes and workflows. We can't stress this enough. So at distinctly the core of our e-commerce SEO service is about automation. How can we gather data and turn that into actionable insights as fast as possible? And this could be, you can extend this into optimizing pages, keyword research, market analysis, but don't spend too much time trying to gather insights, spend more time trying to action on them. Next is around optimizing architecture. So we talked about this, it's about understanding what the different intents of your audience are, whether that's on-site, whether that's from Google, and make sure that you build your website around that and those conversion journeys. Understand and leverage your data, whether that's building your own custom CTR curves, tracking your share of voice, understanding different search demand growth or decline. Make sure you understand that, because any good SEO strategy should be 100% backed by good data. Optimize your product visibility. Again, have a product feed, make sure that you've got that, make sure that it's in merchant center, it's fully optimized, and make sure you're using all of the attributes and fields that you can. Test as much as possible. For mid-sized to big e-commerce brands, generally it's quite difficult to make site-wide rollouts of actions. There's obviously buy-in processes, there's resources, budget goes towards that. Test as much as you can. Test on a small sample of pages, measure the uplift. You can then obviously forecast revenue growth from that, and then you can roll out site-wide. And this means that you're also being a bit more tactical and strategic with what you implement and when. And lastly, really important, try and connect with your audiences across different platforms. Understand what they're saying about you, your products, your brand. Leverage social media, create different types of content. Don't just focus on blog content, create video content, create guides, create instructionals, and tie everything together, and then use SEO to amplify that voice. So there's a lot there, but we're going to head over now to Lewis, looking at the world of AI search.
Thank you very much, Cam. That overran, but we'll be fine, I'm sure. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about AI overviews, AI mode, and large language models. So, as you're well aware, as everyone is e-commerce led in this, is that there has been, the early stages of paradigm shift away from Google, a more keyword-led focus, and towards what is an AI future. So Google itself has AI overviews and AI mode now. And we've got other language models like Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT that are now on the horizon. Google itself has AI overviews. We are aware that these are mainly triggered on informational terms and heavily weighted towards those. And due to this, there has been an increase in zero-click searches. And on the horizon, they are going to include ads as well. AI mode, as of this week, I believe, Google announced that it's now in the UK. It has been only just in the US, but these serve multiple intents similar to a large language model and is more based around this conversational search we're seeing. So we did a small study around sort of 3,000 keywords, all with different intents, and we found that AIOs were actually triggered on 80% of those informational intent keywords. So heavily weighted towards those. So if you are heavily invested in content marketing, you are at high risk of losing traffic. However, the more transactional intent, commercial intent keywords, medium to low risk. So how at Destiny do we optimize content for AO success? So it's important to map and understand user intent of your queries that are triggering AIOs. So what we want to do is locate these, locate the pages, and leverage those queries on those pages using easy to understand formats for language models or for AIOs, like bullet points, clear headings, short paragraphs. So they can be easily surfaced in these new Google surfaces. So how are AI mode and LLMs transforming the search landscape? So as I mentioned, we're moving away from traditional SEO, which was around SEO content, around keyword targeting, around domain authority, to something which is more around topical authority, around entities, around citations, around expertise and trust and authority. And then this is what it sort of comes out as in AI mode. So We know that AI mode provides more of a language model experience now through our testing. And here are sort of some of the key features around its layout. So we know that it provides recent product guides. We know that it links to products through Merchant Center. It gives more information about that product and top insights. It adds reviews, which include video reviews. It adds discussions and forums. And it also adds further products around other relevant categories. So back to Cameron's point around, coats and jackets, around waterproof coats and jackets, around large, small, medium sized, etc. So very much a more comprehensive search experience than what we are used to seeing. So the emphasis must be on building brand and topical authority through content and third-party citation. So what this looks like in real terms is this. So we have a ChatGPT prompt around best cushioned running shoes for long runs. And we can see, based on the answers, where ChatGPT is sourcing that information from. And it is heavily on digital PR, i.e. publications like GQ, New York Post, Self, and Tom's Guide. So we know there is an added importance now to be referenced in these places in order to be referenced in ChatGPT itself. So what this means is that we need to basically identify these trusted sources. We need to outreach to those publications in order to get inclusion in them. We need to monitor those mentions and citations and then measure the AI language model visibility uplift within that. Now, it's not just digital PR, it's now content as well, as I mentioned about entities. So what we want to be doing is building a map of information of topical authority around your products. So as you see on the left-hand side, this is from InLinks itself. It builds these really cool entity graphs showing you what topical or what entities that you are lacking within your content. And I think on the right-hand side here is a good example of, I think this is ASICS doing this. So within their products themselves, they actually talk about the tech and features of these running trainers. They talk about the pronation of these running trainers, but then also the details as well. So it covers a very comprehensive and vast amount of information now. And similar to what Cameron was saying about these product optimization, this is where the future lies. Furthermore, we can do this through schema, structured data, and building connections between all this information. So if you have a blog on a specific subject around running trainers, who is that blog by? Are they qualified to talk about this this topic? Who are they affiliated to? What company do they work for? What accreditations do they have? And what you want to do through schema, this article schema on the bottom right hand side here is connect these entities. So you say this is an article by this person who has this many accreditations, they're qualified, and they're affiliated to this company. This is building a much larger map of information for Google to help Google understand where this information is coming from, who they are, and is it trustworthy. So to distill that, what can brands do to be more visible in AI mode moving forwards? And I do stress this is very embryonic AI mode. It's only come this week, but we feel that this is going to be the future. So ensure your product feed is optimized with Merchant Center. We saw products come up in AI mode a fair amount. Ensure those products have seller ratings and are continually reviewed. We know that trust and authority or authoritativeness is absolutely key. So reviews, again, absolutely vital. We see that videos are becoming more prominent. Create a video strategy. Start creating videos yourself. Engage in relevant online communities and forums. Again, similar to what's on the SERP, we're seeing that in AI mode as well. So again, absolutely vital we do this. And then plug any entity gaps for your content, whether that be on products, whether that be on collections, whether that be on articles, through schema, and join those entities together. And not to agentic shopping here, which basically is your own shopping agent. So again, what we're seeing is more control away from the user towards these language models, helping them come to an end decision. I'm slightly skeptical about this. I think this is probably a bridge too far, but we shall see. We'll keep monitoring this. And lastly, we do know that products will be coming to ChatGPT. So you can ensure that you sign up your shopping feed and integrate with that so that you ensure that your products show up within ChatGPT itself. So, key takeaways.
Yes, that was, I wasn't quite aware that was a lot to cover in a short space of time, but you could take away anything from today. We really want it to be this. Google's e-commerce search results are changing all the time. How they look today, they won't look tomorrow. How they look yesterday, they don't look today. You have to stay up to date with how this looks. What are these changes? Most importantly, what do these changes mean for your performance? And gather as much data as you can. Be able to react quickly. That is how brands are going to drive growth. We're moving into a world of product visibility. Arguably, we're already there. This isn't just across core search, but into AI search as well. As Lewis just mentioned about, even adding your product feed directly into ChatGPT, that's a big step forward. Do not just rely on category pages. They are going to become less and less important. Google's moving towards being a marketplace. That's just absolutely fact. If you look at the US search results for any e-commerce keywords, you'll see that what the evolution looks like. Build your product visibility. Brands have to balance SEO activity between core search and LLM. Now, LLM traffic at the moment might account for 1 to 5% of your overall organic traffic, but that number can and most likely will grow. Unfortunately, tactics of one may not necessarily work for the other. That's a bit of a conversation point in the industry at the moment, but you have to make sure that your organic search strategies that cover Google and LLMs cover all of your bases. But importantly, take this away as the main point, Google still remains the #1 platform to focus on. And there's a lot of hype and conversation around AI search, and rightfully so. It is important and it will grow, but for right now, for the e-commerce brands that we've looked at and we work with, Google remains #1. Users may be using LLMs and AI search for part of that product journey to get information, but at the moment, most conversions are taking place on Google. So don't take your focus and attention away from where your audience is and where the revenue is. So we are conscious we're a little bit over, but we're still not doing too bad. We're going to run through some questions now. Before we do, obviously, like we said, we've tried to cover a lot in a relatively short space of time. If you want to know more about how to grow your brand's performance, or if you want more information on anything we've covered, here are our email addresses. You can get in touch directly.
Cool. So just to quickly run through the questions that were submitted, I think that we'll start with this one here, which is what foundational principles or strategies would you recommend early stage companies to focus on to gain traction and future-proof their discoverability in emerging search paradigms?
Good question. So early stage companies, whether you're early stage or not, it's about brand. Push your brand out there. Make sure that your brand is being talked about. Make sure that you're getting brand mentions and brand coverages. Ideally, you can reverse engineer what the LLMs, whether it's Gemini, Perplexity, ChatGPT, as Lewis showed, what are the sources that they're using. Make sure that you are leaning into those and where possible, getting featured in those. Cool. Next question is how to grow as a brand that runs a D2C store alongside having our products with retailers.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. Again, very much branded search. I would potentially look at building a branded share voice that we do. Yeah, I think that works well. You can see what competitors are turning up, being prominent against your own brand. I would look at potentially pricing, are they trying to undercut you? Ensuring that you're absolutely visible for all, owning your branded search space, I think is the most important part here, and brand reputation as well. So, we discussed discussions and forums, and, maybe looking at just providing a good service. We are living in a world now whereby the user journey or conversion journey is thrown up in the air. There's no such thing as looking online, finding more about the brand and then converting. People go away, find a product they like, then they go searching on Amazon or they go searching on resellers just to find a better service, whether it be delivery, returns. They look in discussions and forums, they look at reviews, etc. So it's a much different lead time now, and ensuring that you're owning that space and you are marketing in that space is absolutely vital. Cool, got one here. Google's AI is becoming more dominant in search results and give us short times within the browser. How will we maintain organic clicks and traffic going forward if queries are answered in full within the search result?
Okay, So yeah, it's unavoidable. Google's AI is in search results. AI overviews, like Lewis said, 80% or more of information on keywords trigger it. Ultimately, brands that rely heavily on informational traffic are going to lose clicks. It's unavoidable. The data is already out. The studies are done on AI overviews. They do not prefer clicks anywhere near as far as much as traditional search results. But e-commerce brands should always be focusing on transactional searches as well. If you are relying heavily on just informational searches, you're going to run into problems. What we do recommend pushing towards, even if you have to pivot towards transactional searches, connect on other platforms. So we know that users are searching on other platforms like Reddit, like TikTok. And if you're finding that you're losing your return on investment in your content marketing, start pushing towards other platforms as well and tie those into your SEO plans. And while this is easier said than done, really try and focus on building a brand. How can you turn a search for running trainers into Nike running trainers and have them come directly to the Nike website? Because that search will convert at a higher rate. It does take a lot of time. It takes more than just SEO. It takes digital marketing, it takes brand marketing, but ultimately e-commerce brands need to be focusing on that as well. Next question is how best to manage SEO on templated sites like Shopify, as well as the issues around AI search.
Okay, yeah, I mean, to some extent, every website will be templated. Shopify, you obviously have collections and products, and you can't get away from that URL structure. So I guess what we need to do here is ensure that you maximize those product templates. So within a design phase, let's say, of creating that website, I'd ensure that you are baking in SEO as much as possible. So ensure that you have detailed, descriptions, I guess space to aside to ensure that you've got reviews and information, which is, I guess, more nuanced than just what you're going to get, on a very generic reseller website or, whatever. So having your brand come through that would be super important. And then to build topical authority or relevance away from that product or collection. So not only having a great amount of information on that collection and on that product on those pages themselves, but going away and building out topical authority around that. So if you had it on running trainers, then say, what are the best running trainers for marathons or, for long distances, for comfort, for let's say different terrain. You can't just cover that all on one page. So you need to build out this ecosystem of information around those products and collections. Okay.
Awesome.
Second, oh no, we've got more running through.
Cool. Okay, so let's jump into this one. If a German brand wants to expand into international markets over 10, would you recommend a new website, creating subdomains, or using subfolders? The brand name is not really suitable for an international audience. What do you think, Lewis?
I would like to know the brand name. I would keep the brand name consistent across the different international markets, just for consistency. How then you divvy that up? You can go two ways. You can go the general top level domain route, which is .com/subfolders, i.e. DE for Germany, FR for France. The pros to this is that you feed off the authority of the main domain. The cons is it's quite hard to geo-target those. So you have to build up a really comprehensive hreflang. And in my view, it doesn't always particularly work. I've worked on many international projects now. And what I actually do, or at least recommend, is that people go down the country code route. So for instance, it'll be brand name.de for Germany, brand.fr for France. Now, the pros are that it's a much better and stronger signal to search engines like Google that this is targeting users in that dedicated country. However, there will be the caveat that these are treated by search engines as very different domains. Therefore, they won't be using the same authority. But what I would do if I was setting this up on day one, I would build out country codes. I would look to basically use link building / digital PR team to build up their authority and build up that content around those domains. And then push specific products or collections that are most important to you.
Cool. That sounds like a question that might be worth getting in touch with us for. We can give you a bit more information.
Cool. Last question from us then. Only 15 minutes over, but top tips for a first audit of an e-commerce site, what to look for.
Cool. All right. If we could give you this as in as short a time as possible, understand your market. So understand your client's market, understand who they're trying to target, do their pages accurately talk to those. Look at search volumes by category, look at the search features that we talked about, how competitive the search results are. From there, you need to understand how do you prioritize actions for a mid to size, even a small e-commerce brand to get the return fastest, to grow visibility, to grow rankings. Try potentially steer away from highly competitive terms if you don't think you can compete there. Build up the topical authority that Lewis was talking about. Look at links. Ultimately, you need to look at the market and understand what's working for other people. How do you use that and how do you leverage that to get ahead?
Should we?
Yeah, we've got a few in here. So just conscious of time, we've got a few questions in the chat. So thank you to everyone for putting those in. So what tools do you recommend for share of voice? So we built our own proprietary tool to do this. There are tools out there, even tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush will give you a share of voice chart. The caveat to this is that the share of voice data is only accurate if the rankings data is accurate. Some tools will give you slightly outdated ranking information because they don't scrape the search results daily. But there are tools out there that can do this. Like I said, we use our internal, so we can't recommend too many there. Next question from Ryan, thank you Ryan, is what do you think about AI bot blocking, namely Cloudflare's position? We've had to rate limit AI bot blocking. I think my personal thought on this is that it's a bold move from Cloudflare to by default have bots blocked. As a brand, I can see the value in it, but really if your competitors aren't on Cloudflare or aren't blocking bots, are they going to get ahead? And the answer is probably yes. You said you had to rate limit AI bot blocking. I think that's okay. I think the main thing is that your content is accessible. So if you rate limit, but your content can still be found and accessed and cited as sources within AI search and LLMs, I think it's okay. I think what we're seeing more of those people leaning into analyzing log files, understand what how the different bots are hitting your website, hitting your server, understand what sort of content is getting hit by different bots, and just make sure that you're going to rate limit, you're not going to sort of hamstring yourself in that regard. And then the last one is based on your points around not just having masses of pages and focusing on quality. Is it more effective to productize our offering as an agency over having 100 pages? To follow the criteria, I would say to that, I think if there's search volume behind it and a user landing from that search onto your website is going to be happy with what they see and convert, absolutely have a page. But an example could be if you wanted to, if we had this thing here, we wouldn't have a page that says SEO agency and SEO services because the intent's the same. Google's going to know the intent's the same, but we'd have a page on SEO services, digital PR services, paid media. Use the keyword research to understand what the search volumes are, understand what the intent of the search is. Is it something you want to appear for? Look at the search results. So like I said, keyword insights, take that for a spin. It is really useful. You can do it at scale, map out your architecture from there. Don't just get too blinkered with what's good for SEO though. Think about UX. When they land on your website, if you're giving them 100 pages, that's a bit convoluted. Is that journey going to become a bit distracting for the user? Is it going to impact conversion rate? Probably. You can create pages that aren't directly accessible in the menu, but combine UX, combine search volume, search intent, that will probably tell you what you need to do.
Cool. So that's the end of the questions. 20 minutes over time, but do you know what? I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I do appreciate everybody who's hung in there with us. So we'll wrap up here. We'll send the recordings around. If you've got any questions, get in touch with us afterwards. If not, enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you all.